So I have this question, and this question is, hey, Annie, how can I break free from the mommy wine culture? This is such a beautiful question. Oh, the mommy wine culture. I have so much love and compassion for moms in the mommy wine culture. And I remember seeing once on Instagram some post, and it said something like, I'm a mom and I don't need alcohol to feel better. And I remember seeing it, and I had not been drinking for years, but I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, if I was drinking as a mom and I saw that post, it would awaken a feeling of shame in me and self-loathing and blame. And so I am so adamant about us not shaming ourselves. We're not shaming each other when we are stuck with, by the way, the tool that society has sort of given us on a silver platter and saying, hey, all your problems, here you go. And so I like to say, and you've probably heard me say it before, but I'll say it again, we are doing the best we can with the tools we have. And when we are moms and we are new moms, and motherhood and fatherhood are very unexpected in some ways, and they can be very overwhelming in some ways. And all of a sudden, we have realized, oh, wow, we can get together and connect, and we can connect over a glass of wine, and it seems totally kosher and okay. And in the moment, it's making me feel better. Of course, we're going to do that. Of course, we're going to do that. Now, one of the things that we know from so many years of history is that, parenting happens in a village, in a group, in the best possible way. And so that tribe that you create around you, that group of other parents, is such a beautiful, beautiful thing. But at some point, it has gotten intertwined with alcohol. Now, this is not unique. Alcohol has gotten intertwined with just about everything. Sporting events, there's alcohol. I remember running marathons, and at the end of the marathon, there's the beer. It was like these things were completely and totally interlocked, right? And so alcohol has, through advertising and many other ways, made its way into every single social event possible. And of course, into the mommy culture. And so it's not just, the mom sisterhood culture, it is the mommy wine culture. And so the first thing I think that is so, so important is to, when you're looking to break free of that, is to not shame yourself or shame anyone else, and just realize like, wow, we all just got caught up in something that isn't actually helping. It isn't actually helping. I mean, I remember some really, really scary experiences of, all the moms over for wine, and one of the moms would be in the bathroom feeling really, really sick because she drank too much wine. I remember people emailing me in about how they'd gotten home from the play date, and the baby was asleep, thankfully, in their crib, but they don't remember how they got home. And there's so many places where we just kind of egg each other on. And I remember in my own experience, when something would happen or you'd have a hard day, everybody would be like, don't worry, we're coming over with wine. And so it becomes such an easy thing to look around. So first thing I would say is just really understand that you and all of the women that you're hanging out with and momming together with, you guys are doing the best you can with the tools you have. And alcohol just might not be the best tool. And so then once you let yourself off the hook a little bit, I would get really, really curious. Okay, what is it that we think alcohol is? What do I believe it can do for me? And how could I do this in another way? One of the biggest fears is like, okay, I could go away from my mom's group and I could work on my thoughts and I could go through the process and I could get, all of the knowledge that I need to actually change my emotions around drinking, and then I could let drinking go. But what happens when I go back into that mom's group? How is that going to work? And I think that is a really great question. And the way, I'm going to tell you a little story about, it wasn't a mom's group, but it was a group of colleagues. And again, you can kind of replace mommy wine culture with like sales team culture, or marketing department culture, or lawyer culture, or teacher culture, or nurse culture. I mean, all of these different groups of people we've put alcohol in the middle of. So anyway, I remember in my story, it was very specifically, I wasn't really showing up at happy hour, and there was one moment where I got taken aside by a higher up at the office, and they said, hey, why aren't you coming to happy hour? And I said, well, I just don't really drink. And he's like, oh, it's not about the drinking. Like, this is where your ideas get showcased. We're all too busy during the day. This is where the deals get done. This is really important. for you to show up. And I was like, okay. And so I'd show up and I had my method. I had a glass of wine and then a glass of water and a glass of wine and a glass of water because I really was methodical about it. I never wanted to sort of get too tipsy and embarrass myself. And sometimes, you guys, I would go into the bathroom and I would throw up that last glass of wine just so I could keep drinking wine, so I could keep up with this intense sort of high pressured culture that I was in the corporate world. And of course, fast forward a decade, and alcohol does what alcohol does, and it was addictive in my brain and in my body. And boom, I found myself drinking every single night, no matter if I was at work or not. But I remember when I stopped. And literally the person who had come up to me a decade before and said, hey, why aren't you showing up at happy hour? He called me up and he said, Annie, I just want to thank you for writing your book. And I was like, oh, amazing. And he goes, you know what is so funny? Is this whole time, I just felt like I had to drink. And to be honest, I just felt like I was keeping up with you guys. And I'm like, what? You felt like you were keeping up with me? I was definitely like trying to keep up with you. And we had this moment that was so funny because we all felt pressure. We all felt pressure to keep drinking because if we didn't, we were going to let each other down. And when we let go of that by one person going first, by one person being vulnerable, and by one person saying, hey, this isn't working for me anymore, that was me. Everybody else was like, oh, thank goodness. Okay, now we can just go out and, now he would just have a beer when he would go out, or he wouldn't drink anything. And he felt empowered not to drink anything because I had gone first. And I believe that it's the same way in my mommy groups. The same thing happened. And so it's not necessarily, in my opinion, about breaking free. Yes, you shouldn't break free from every single situation that you're in where you feel overly pressured or you feel too intense or you feel like things are going to trigger you into behavior that you don't really want to have, but also feel free to just not drink and show back up for those beautiful women, and even bring them a bottle of wine if you need to at first in order to let them know that you are still you. The things that people fear during change, when somebody changes in a group, there's two things that people fear. They fear that you will become too good for them and you won't want to be around them anymore and you'll reject them. And this can manifest in all sorts of ways. It usually doesn't manifest in them saying that, very honestly. It usually manifests in like judgment and other stuff like that. Or they fear that you will judge them. And so when you can alleviate those fears and say, hey, I'm here for you. I'm still showing up. I'm still going to, be parents right alongside you. I'm still part of this. I'm just not drinking anymore. And that's the best decision I've ever made. And with no judgment and no assumption about how they should behave, you go first. It is incredible how the dynamics of groups can shift. And this isn't just my experience. Person over person over person who has found freedom, whether it's through the path or in another way, have gone back into their real life groups where they were drinking into those cultures, the lawyer culture, the nurse culture, the doctor culture, the teacher culture, and just been the first one to say, yeah, no, don't worry about me. Like, I'm super good. This is just what I decided for myself. And those cultures start to change. So the question is, how do I break free from it? On one hand, if you feel like you need to take a break from whomever in your life you need to take a break from, feel empowered to do that. But on the other hand, maybe reframe it. And maybe it's not so much about breaking free, but it's about showing up and staying connected with the people that you're parenting alongside and just not drinking. It's just alcohol. It's just a liquid in a glass. Put it down and live your life. Like, it doesn't have to be overthought in a lot of different ways. And sometimes we do overthink it because we don't have the right tools. So that's so awesome. What a great question.